welcome your opinion and your views therein or herein at Sam W Njoroge, at Jain Wambui. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. Let's get to understand family planning. Yeah, we're going to have a very bold conversation this morning, especially around vasectomy. Why are men shying away from taking the bull by the horns? Literally. Yeah? Why leave this responsibility to the ladies? And why do ladies feel like, you know, I need to run it by my man, whether or not it's okay for me to go for this family planning method or this family planning outlet? So we welcome your views on the show. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya at KBC Channel 1, at Sam W Njoroge, and at Jain Wambui. She has decided to join me for this discussion. I felt it was necessary. So did our guest this morning. I'm talking about Dr.Raj Dodia, who is an gynecologist and head of gynecology at the MP Shah Hospital. Welcome to the program, Dr. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well, thanks.
Nice. It's good to have you on the program.
Likewise.
And maybe you can begin by telling us what an gynecologist does.
Right. So OBS stands for obstetrics, which is the science/art of pregnancy and delivering babies. The gynecology bit is essentially women's health, everything other than the actual pregnancy bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we've seen women, you know, do trips to the gyna. If a man wants to have a checkup down there, who do they visit?
So many men nowadays, especially in Kenya, are resorting to coming to the gynecologist first. We are the specialists when it comes to sexual health, and therefore it only makes sense. It is only if and when we recognize that there is actually an issue that we send them over and refer them usually to a urologist.
Mm-hmm. And what are the symptoms for a man that you could be having sexual issues? Generally, Dr. Sexual health issues, rather.
Right.
Yeah, I needed to put the health in there.
Right, definitely. Majority of the times, it's got a lot to do with erectile dysfunction. Mm-hmm. Right. And usually when they're accompanied by their spouse or partner, female partner, then we're looking at issues with regards to fertility. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in the wake of a family planning conversation, which is what we're having today, and we really welcome your views and your questions online, hashtag Good Morning Kenya, where should the conversation begin, Dr. Daktari, in terms of what family planning method to embrace as a unit?
That's a great question, Sam. What I've recognized is that these kinds of conversations should ideally start before your head hits the pillow, right? I think this is very important. To have a mutual understanding of where you are in terms of your relationship, in terms of whether you want to have sex ongoing, and whether you are understanding what exactly is the reason behind your relationship and sexual intercourse. Mm-hmm. It could be very casual. It could be part of a marital relationship. And of course, there's the other taboo topics that perhaps you have already explored previously.
What are these taboo topics?
I'm talking about extramarital sex.
Okay. Jane, remember you're in this conversation to help me out.
Yeah.
Yeah? You're in this conversation to help me out. So basically, what are the long-term family planning methods and what are the short-term family planning methods?
So, first of all, I'm chuffed to be here. The fact that I'm talking live on national television, and the first topic I'm talking about is sex. It's pretty exciting in that sense that I am allowing a lot of our viewers to chip in, and I'm asking you to do this so that I understand what it is on the ground that's causing issues. So come back to your question, Sam. Would you please rephrase it so that I can give you an appropriate answer?
Yeah, like long-term versus short-term methods of family planning. Which ones are they?
If you're planning to have a one-night stand and you need contraception to make sure that the woman does not get pregnant, then that would be termed as short-term, very short-term contraception, right?
Those are condoms.
That's correct. Those are condoms.
P2 pills.
That comes after the sexual episode.
Okay.
Right. So
but it's still short-term.
It's still short-term. It actually the P2 or the emergency contraceptive pills are classed in emergency contraception, not really short-term contraception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for long-term?
For long-term, we're looking at contraceptive methods such as the intrauterine devices. These are foreign objects that are actually inserted inside the uterus and act as contraceptive. Yeah.
And usually we've heard this from the ladies. At times there are methods or options they could subscribe to that come with side effects. Maybe you can elaborate more on the side effects of contraception among ladies.
So this is what I do when I have a female patient come into me and request about contraception. So I usually start off with a list of questions. So with University College London, we've come up with actually a list of questions. It's a lovely questionnaire, very short, and it goes like this in brief. We talk about whether you want regular periods or no periods, whether you want lighter or less painful periods, or it's never been an issue, right? Would you want less acne, especially on the face? Would you want something that has hormones or does not have hormones? Okay. Do you have problems with premenstrual stress, premenstrual tension, premenstrual syndrome, right? Some of the answers to these questions help guide us on what may be the best in terms of choosing what sort of contraception you may consider. When it comes to contraceptives, especially with the hormonal and non-hormonal ones, we have a variety of them. There's a large plethora of potential contraceptive options that one can choose from. And it's up to us to come up with a decision. So what I usually do is I give them this guide, they go and read about it, and once they've at least narrowed down their choices, then we can further investigate what may be best for them. A person may not be suitable for some of these contraceptive options. For example, if a person has high blood pressure, hypertension, there's certain classes of contraceptives that are perhaps best not used in those kinds of medical conditions. And therefore, you've got to recognize this before you start dishing out these contraceptives. So it starts from there, and thereafter we consider the side effects, as you've correctly said.
Yeah.
So side effects, there's a broad range of side effects. The hormonal ones, the hormonal contraceptive options have lesser side effects as compared to the non-hormonal contraceptives. The hormonal contraceptives, they have a range of potential side effects. We're talking about moodiness or mood changes. We're talking about changes in sex drive. We're talking about sore breasts, for example. We're talking about hormonal issues that come up, especially when you're taking hormonal manipulative contraceptives.
Like your breasts get sore.
Correct. That's one
like
potential.
The muscle kind of sore when you work out, the after effect.
Jane, I'd love to invite you to this conversation now.
Jane?
I'm still, before we even get to those side effects, there's something that Ray had posed. And I'd like to hear what the good doctor has to say in regards to that. When you are having conversations with patients about the different kinds of contraceptives and family planning methods that they could adopt, as a medical practitioner and I'm also looking at couples or people who are in relationships, when it comes to this conversation about contraceptives, is it a conversation that as a medic you prefer a woman to have with you to help guide her, or you would advise for the couple to decide on the kind of family planning method that they would adopt. This conversation, because we are living in a time where we have men who decide what kind of family planning method that their partner should be on.
I think that's a very valid point of view.
Yeah.
I'll be very honest with you. I'm fairly unorthodox when it comes to these things. So I'm not moved by culture and tradition, least of all here in Kenya.
Which is a good thing.
I hope so.
It is.
So the first time I have a conversation with my female patient about contraception, I want to make sure she's alone, right? People may not like what I'm saying out on television, but this is true. This is how I do it, right?
Yeah.
This is respect to the person with which I'm having this conversation with. If she is in harmony with her partner, if they've both decided together as a couple that this is what they want going forward, then I'm very willing and happy to involve the partner within that conversation, right? Priority goes to the female patient who comes to me
Why
first.
though? And I know the question could be a bit chauvinistic, but why should the priority go to the female patient, in your opinion, Dr.
I'm glad you recognize the chauvinism.
Yeah. Out.
It's got a lot to do with it's got a lot to do with the way females work, the psyche of females. A lot of female psyche has got to do with lack of control, unfortunately, in our tradition and culture. I want to give that back to the female population. It's not just that they deserve it, it's their right. It's their human right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it is me as the woman who is taking, be it the pill, be it the coil that is being inserted, be it the implant, whatever form of contraceptive that you choose to go on, it is the woman who gets to have it in their body.
Let's flip this a bit.
And experience those side effects.
Let's flip this a bit.
In most cases.
Yeah, not all cases though.
In most cases.
So, Dr. I've walked into your office and I want a vasectomy, for example.
Fantastic.
What is a vasectomy? Let's start there.
Fantastic. So you described it as the 1-2. Why did you say that?
Sorry?
You described a vasectomy as a 1-2.
No, it's an example I'm giving. Like I've walked into your office and I want a vasectomy. Will you ask me to involve my partner in this decision?
That's a very good question, actually. So by the surprisingly, and this is with my experience, when the man has come in asking for a vasectomy, he's usually consulted his partner or spouse, right? And they're usually on the same page by the time you get to a vasectomy. So vasectomy essentially is a minor surgical operation that is done on the male. There are certain tubes, there are two tubes, one right and one left, that transport sperm from the testicles all the way out. So the vasectomy involves actually blocking those tubes so that no more sperm gets ejaculated. So by the time, as I was saying, by the time the man appears and presents himself at the clinic, he's had a whole range of conversations. My conversation with him is very specific. I want to make sure that he recognizes the decision he's making. Primarily because this decision means that his sterility after the vasectomy procedure is going to be permanent.
Let's define sterility for purposes of our viewers.
Right. So sterility is the fact that however much sex he may have, he is unlikely to get the other person pregnant.
The word being unlikely.
Because I think, personally, no method of contraception is 100%.
Fail-proof.
Zero.
There's still that chance.
Abstinence fails. And many of our I shouldn't be saying this. It's more religio-political than anything else. But Sam has caught on to it. I'm saying that no method of contraception is 100% effective.
Okay.
Even barrier methods.
Oh, these are highly, highly prone to failure, especially barrier methods. Right?
So there is always a possibility of an oops moment.
Yes.
99.9%.
It happened again.
Vasectomy is one of the most reliable forms of contraception that we have, and that's a fact.
That's a fact.
Absolutely.
Well, I think from a male point of view, I have an issue with it being called a minor surgery because
Right.
clearly the consequences of it are nothing minor. but it is what it is. How is the uptake of vasectomy or male contraception in Kenya as we speak?
It has been rather slow. It's picking up. It's picking up quite fast, actually, and I'm glad to say it is. Yeah.
And what could be driving that pickup?
I think it's putting aside all the orthodox views about male dominance in the society. It's putting away the thinking of, I always need to be in control. I always need to make sure I have access to more children. You know, with the current economical climate, I'm talking about, by current I mean over the past 10, 20, 30 years, what we've recognized is that the expenses that come with bearing more children sometimes negate the advantages of having more children. And I think we're tipping over towards understanding this.
But do you think there's been a gap when it comes to information and reliable and factual information about vasectomy in the population? And even when we're going for checkups at the hospital, that lack of information or that shying away from sharing of it has contributed?
Oh, yes. It's not just vasectomy. It's even female contraception. I'm sorry to say this.
Yeah.
A large proportion of the patients who come to see me for contraceptive advice have such skewed views about what contraception actually is, the different types of contraception. She says, I don't want to have a baby come out waving the coil, and there's some ridiculous stories out there, and I call them mamamboga stories because that's where they get the stories from. People they talk to, people, you know, they interact with all around in their daily life, etc. And I'm glad to say we come with information. So here at MP Shah Hospital, what we do is the entire department is based on evidence-based medicine. We practice with evidence-based medicine. So all the information that we give you is recognized, literature-based, evidence-based, scientifically based medical information, right? So some of these stories, yes, they come with their own background in terms of history, in terms of funny moments, in terms of what society thinks. We aim to educate our patient, and this is what usually helps. Now, with vasectomy especially, because of the low numbers that we're talking about in this part of Africa, we've recognized that not only is there a huge gap in terms of information, the information that is out there is word of mouth, inaccurate many times. And we actually aiming to fill this gap in, and I think it's a necessity.
All right, it's a necessity. William Wambui, thank you so much for watching the show. You're asking a question, and I will just take it verbatim. Easy family planning methods, husikia ati ufanya boobs na haga kuwa kubwa. Je, ni kweli? We'll be getting to that in just a short while. And also there are those of you who are talking about withdrawal. All right? We'll also have that bold conversation about withdrawal as part of family planning. Keep the questions coming in. We're taking a break. We'll be back in a moment.